Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to start something new. We are going to play Crusader Kings 3, in and as Jarl Alfred of Dorset. We'll be going for the rags to riches achievement as we take on the hardest character in this historic setting, playing in all Ironman mode. This historic setting has inspired many of the TV shows and novels, Vikings being one of them. The Wrath of the Northmen takes place exactly after King Aela executes Ragnar Lothbrok, and his sons declare a war of vengeance on Aela and the whole of England. Historically, Alfred had a significant role in ending the Viking conflict and stabilizing the land. Now without much delay, let us jump into our version of the story. The year was 867 AD. 2 years have passed since King Aela of Northumbria had ordered the execution of the famous Viking, Ragnar Lothbrok. Now his sons, Ivar and Halfdan, are running havoc in England. The combined forces of Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria and East Anglia are failing before the wrath of the Northmen. Maybe the hope of the land lays with the young Count of Dorset. Today we are going to witness the journey of Alfred as he must rise against the atrocities of the never-ending Viking conquest and unify the British Isles under a strong Anglo-Saxon rule. This is Dorset, realm and home to Alfred. Dorset was a part of the Duchy of Wessex, ruled by Alfred's brother and king, Ethelred. To the west of Dorset is the Duchy of Cornwall, a weak but proud realm. East Anglia lies to the east of Wessex, burdened by the constant Viking raids and the ongoing war. To the north is the petty kingdom of Mercia, and to its north is nothing but chaos, brought by the sons of Ragnar. Northumbria suffers the most, as it was the petty King Aela of Northumbria who ordered the execution of Ragnar. Among all this chaos, Alfred stands as an honest, just, gregarious, diligent man, a military genius and an intelligent ruler. His traits may not suit well for the conniving plots and petty politics of court and realm, but his strong heart and sharp mind has potential beyond limit. Alfred's lovely wife belongs to the eastern province of Mercia. Her love for knowledge is known throughout the realm. Looking at his depleting coffers, Alfred must forego his passion for martial education for now and must focus on stewardship, hoping to get the additional monthly income. Talking about stewardship, his own steward needed an upgrade. Looking for better option, he found none in his feeble court. In desperation, he turns to a lady in his court, hoping her hand in marriage and a place in the council will be enough to attract someone good. Sigbert of East Anglia seemed to be the perfect candidate for the job. Excellent news for Alfred. Now to bring Sigbert into his council. He tried the same trick for a better chancellor and a marshal, but neither there were any good candidates nor were there any more potential brides in his court. At least Sigbert's wife seemed to be better fit for a spymaster. As time flew, Alfred saw little change in his fortune. With wishful eyes, he turned to the divine. The papacy gives away gold to the pious rulers who need coins for their realm. An interesting proposition for Alfred. Befriending the Pope might further help with such future transaction, thought Alfred. And so he took upon the mighty task of learning the language of the Pope, hoping it will open doors to years of friendship with mutual benefit. The invasion of Northumbria looks extremely gloomy for the Anglo-Saxon rulers. Alfred worries for his poor brother, who got dragged into this war for no fault of his own. At least Halfdan's campaign on East Anglia is not going so well, for the Northmen. A year had passed by, but nothing much had changed, neither for Alfred nor for the realm. One day, his bishop brings in some relief. It was the wealth of a wealthy but childless landholder, whose dying wish was that his fortune should go where it could be of some help to others. Alfred knew where the money could do good. As promised, he commissioned farmlands in Dorset with the help of that charity. But when everything was finally coming into place, Alfred received a terrifying news. His brother and king had just died in a hunting accident. How did it happen? Why was his brother hunting in the middle of a war? Did his childless marriage had something to do with it? While such questions boggled his mind, one thing could not be denied. He had just inherited the dukedom of Wessex and now was the petty king of this land. A ruler has no room for emotion, Alfred consoled himself. With the promise to carry forward his brother's work, he jumped straight into statecraft. He had to get his council going, filling up all those empty chairs, keeping a balance between talent and politics. He started with bringing in Sigbert from his old council at Dorset, while he appointed one of his counts as the chancellor and another of his vassal as the military commander of the realm. But for the spymaster, he had a different plan. His dead brother's wife was always a suspect in his brother's death, at least in the eyes of Alfred. So he opted to marry her off to an elusive young man, Peter, who could not only serve Alfred as a spymaster but also can keep an watchful eye on his former sister-in-law, just in case she hatches any plot. His recent inheritance meant Alfred had more land than he could manage. He used his newly gained lands to bring in warriors who could serve him in the impending war with the Northmen. He knew how the Vikings fought, so he wanted only the best of warriors to surround himself with. He sent heralds to bring in news of worthy champions for his realm. With his rise in rank, even the Pope began taking a note of Alfred. The papacy's gold that he had been so eagerly waiting for had finally arrived. This was all the preparation Alfred could do before his new duties took him to the battlefield. And thus he raised his armies for the first time. His army was no match for the Northmen, comprising mostly of levies, and tired from the years of defeat they had to endure against the Vikings. Nonetheless, Alfred had to make do with what he inherited. Alfred decided to march against Ivar first. He mustered all his forces near Oxfordshire. More than 3,000 men stood at Alfred's command. Alfred pondered, where shall his armies fight first? At the Scottish capital of Ivar, or in his Irish settlement near Dublin? As he decided to march upon Ivar, news came in that Ivar the Boneless is soon to surrender. There was no use now for Alfred to go after Ivar. He orders his armies to march north into the capital of Ragnar. A daring move for a new king. His armies marched through Mercia into the barony of Jorvik. Soon Alfred and his allies began sieging Halfdan's land. While at siege, two news of good fortune embraced Alfred. His dear wife was with child, and that Ivar had finally surrendered and given up his dream on East Anglia. One less war for Alfred to worry about. With new vigor, Alfred and his allies continued the siege, but Alfred knew that sooner or later he would have to face Halfdan's great heathen army. As Halfdan's armies approached, Alfred contemplated his choices, whether to stand and fight or to lift the siege before they can catch up to him. But something told him to listen to his gut instead of his mind. Soon Halfdan's forces rained upon Alfred. Alfred was confident of a win, but soon Halfdan's remaining forces joined the fight. Halfdan's forces were double that of Alfred's, and Halfdan would never lose a defending war with such odds in his favor. Battle of Jorvik proved costly for Alfred. Defeated and humiliated, Alfred and his army marched back towards their capital, hoping Halfdan will not follow. But in his heart, Alfred knew one day the fortune will favor him, and he shall come out as the ultimate winner. He could do nothing now but to wait for his armies to replenish. If only he had more time to prepare, would the consequences of this war be different? Just as his heart sank, remembering the defeat at the hand of Halfdan and the news of a rebellion brewing at home, his bishop came in, bringing in some good news. Alfred had almost forgotten the investment he had made some time back to forge a claim on his neighboring duchy of Cornwall. Even though he eyed the whole duchy of Cornwall, but his empty coffers forced Alfred to settle for only Devon. And soon more good news followed. His son, his firstborn heir, Alfred, fondly remembering his brother, names his newborn son after him. With a son in his life, Alfred thinks like any new father does. His son shall be a great ruler. He will teach him what he had learned from his father and brothers, and that his son shall not be tormented by these Vikings. He will vanquish them from this land, starting from this idiotic Viking lord who dared to raid in his land. Defeating that Viking chieftain gave Alfred and his troops the moral uplift they needed. Alfred though could sense that it was only the beginning of many such victories. With his armies replenished, Alfred once again marched towards Northumbria. But before anything could be done, Northumbria surrendered, bringing an end to this cursed war. A time for peace must be used for the preparation of war. Alfred knew that. He extended his alliance to Mercia, where his sister ruled as the petty queen. With the alliance secured, it was time for expansion. Alfred started with Cornwall. He shall have Devon merged into his kingdom. With Devon at the tip of his sword, Alfred plots to move against East Anglia next, ordering his bishop to fabricate a claim on the Eastern Duchy. Alfred moved with his full force towards Devon. Cornwall's army was no match to his. With an easy victory, Alfred sat on a long siege. Alfred had no intention of letting his full army sit idly though, for such a small war. He pondered where he could send the rest of his armies to. That is when troubling news came in. A peasant revolt in Wessex shook his plans. Alfred was never to bow before any peasant. He quickly divided his forces. While he sent one of his commanders to deal with peasant rebellion, he himself stood in charge of his offensive campaign. While he waited for the allies of Cornwall to challenge his siege, a news flew in. Another son was born to him and his wife, a good omen before the upcoming battle. May you grow to be strong and wise, my son, Alfred prayed softly. With a blink of an eye, both the battles were won. The leader of the peasant rebellion caught the eyes of Alfred, a strong and brave leader of the men. Alfred could use people like him in his army. Alas, such talent will have to rot in the dungeons for now. With the rebellion dealt with, he ordered his other army to march into Cornwall. His stewardship was growing with each passing day, and slowly his coffers were showing the signs of it. Before long, the siege in Devon was over. Alfred managed to take the Duke's son as hostage, thus ensuring the victory in his campaign for Devon. The new county of Devon needed a new lord, and Alfred knew none other than his trusted steward Sigbert deserved it. Alfred was always known to be a just ruler after all. He always appreciated talented individuals. It didn't matter where they came from, and so was true for the rebel leader. That was all for today. I really hope you all liked the journey so far. Hoping to bring the second part of Alfred's journey to you all shortly. please do consider subscribing to the channel so that you do not miss any upcoming content. Thank you and stay safe.